What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. And in this particular video, man, I want to bring home a point, okay? While we all have biases, we all have our biases, we all have our preferences, we all have our prejudices. You know what I'm saying? When it comes to LeBron James, you guys know I don't like him. But I let you know that from the get go. I don't try to act like I'm being neutral with him, and then you can clearly see I have a, a disdain for him. Okay, although I do sometimes push that in, and we'll give him some praise. But having said that, when it comes to politics, too often in today's world, we're used to listening to people who we agree with or who we think will agree with. When the healthy thing to do is to listen to people who you don't agree with. Because while you may initially feel some type of way about that, over time, it'll help to give you a more balanced overall viewpoint of the whole picture. And sometimes, look, when you just listen to people who you always agree with, you subject yourself to groupthink, meaning that it teaches you to be small minded. It teaches you to only support certain views that correspond or correlate with your own. And sometimes you listen to other people's viewpoints, it can help to shift your own opinions because you can learn certain things that you didn't know previously. So that's why I think it's always healthy in most instances listen to people who you disagree with. And anyway, my point when it comes to politics is in this race, especially, I'm trying not to take sides because I don't support either candidate. What I prefer that you get out of this is, even if you disagree with me, is that I'm trying to be fair and I'm trying to be more importantly accurate. That's what I care about, being accurate. That's the only thing that pisses me off is when I get on here and report something that turns out to be incorrect. You know, that means I didn't do my job, and that means that the media outlets I got my information from were incorrect. Now, let me get into this. There's a new Gallup poll that came out, okay? And while it is just one poll, Gallup is the oldest and one of the most accurate and trustworthy polls that there have been for some, 90 years now? There's a poll that came out just yesterday, and this polling was done from August 1st to August 20th. And if you're a Trump supporter, this poll will make you shake in your boots. If you're a Kamala Harris supporter, you're going to cheer. If you're a person like me who don't really uh, subscribe to either candidate, doesn't really move me one way or the other, but it does prove a point I've been trying to preach on here for quite some time. And you'll see what I'm talking about. So back in June, Joe Biden's approval rating was 36%. His unfavorability rating or percentage was at 58%. That's nearly 60%. That means that nearly 6 out of 10, or about 6 out of 10 Americans disapproved of the job Joe Biden was doing. His approval rating was less than 40%. Historically, I can tell you that would have sunk him to a major defeat. Major defeat. Even in this polarized electorate, Joe Biden probably wouldn't have even carried 20 states. Okay? It would have been a huge defeat for Joe Biden. Even states that are kind of normally Democratic, like Colorado, New Hampshire, New Mexico, would have been in play. His approval rating now is around 43%, with a 53% disapproval rating. Still underwater, but 43%, that's getting closer to a percentage where you can make time to make a race out of things if he was the nominee. But this is the shocker. And this shows you the power of the left-leaning media. Back in June, Kamala Harris had a worse approval rating than Joe Biden, just 34% versus a 57% unfavorability rating or percentage. Remember, there were some reports just a month ago that were saying that maybe some of the strategy as to why they were trying to get rid of Biden was to get rid of Kamala Harris as well, because she was so unpopular within her own party. But because of the power of the media, it's been proven 84% of media coverage has been positive for Kamala Harris. They just did a tracking polling percentage of that. Not polling percentage, but a measuring percentage of that. 84% of all media has been positive for Kamala Harris. If you don't think that has an effect on people, look at this. Right now, her approval rating is 47% versus a 49% disapproval rating. She's almost even. That's the power of the media. 47%. That's a huge surge of support for her, at least at the moment. Donald Trump in June had a 46% approval rating versus 52% disapproval. For him, those are good numbers because he's always had high negatives. Ironically, since the assassination attempt, he's gone down. In that time period, he's now at 41% versus 55% disapproval. J.D. Vance continues to be one of the most unpopular VP picks ever. 31% approval versus 48% disapproval, and the disapprovals are growing. These numbers should scare the hell out of Trump supporters because it's showing how powerful the media is in pushing this image of Kamala Harris as Obama 2008 2.0, right? When we know that she's not. She's not. She's just simply not. But they're doing a good job of it. And then another thing this is the point I'm trying to make about how I've been right about this. I've been trying to tell people that ever since the incident in Butler, Pennsylvania, a little over about 5 weeks ago now, ever since that incident, Donald Trump has been off his game. I suspect part of it is, and this shows the lack of empathy people have for him. Part of it, in my opinion, is that I think the guy has some sort of post-traumatic stress. There are reports of some of his aides and subordinates notice that he'll be on his phone constantly looking at the video of him getting, shot at, I guess I'll say. He just had an event 4 or 5 days ago, I think it was. It was his first outdoor event. He's behind bulletproof glass. I think he's been off, as most people would be. He's been off his game. He's, you know what I'm saying? I think he's scared. That did something to him. I think it would do something to anybody. To be that close to being taken out. Theodore Roosevelt was something different, man. Theodore Roosevelt was built differently. Theodore Roosevelt in October 1912, running as a third-party candidate, former president, running on the progressive ticket, a.k.a. nicknamed the Bull Moose Party. And he was in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, campaigning, giving a speech. And in his speech that he had, it was a long speech. He was notoriously long-winded. I think he gave an 84-minute speech. He had the speech that he memorized, or at least memorized most of it, or tried to memorize a lot of it. He had it folded up in his breast pocket. And in that pocket, he also had his eyeglass case right over his heart. The bullet that he was shot with was not a high caliber weapon anyway, but the combination of his girth, the the eyeglass case, and the folded up speech slowed down the momentum of the bullet so that it didn't actually go through him, but I think it just sort of penetrated the chest wall. So there he was, bleeding profusely, shot, not mortally wounded. He coughed to make sure that he didn't have blood. He wasn't coughing up blood, so that means that his lung wasn't pierced. And he proceeded to give an 84-minute speech where he said at the beginning, it's going to take more than that, the bullet, than being shot to kill and put down a bull moose. That's Theodore Roosevelt. Donald Trump is Theodore Roosevelt. And it just goes to show you how he's just not an empathetic figure, man. But the thing is, the Republicans have failed to attach Kamala Harris to the Biden administration. And they keep going after the personal attacks, DEI hire, talking about she's not a real American. Yeah, did those attacks work on Obama? Did that work on Obama? No, it didn't. What ultimately happened was, even in 2012, even when people had grievances against Barack Obama, remember it was a historic black turnout in 2012, even though we didn't get credit for that. You start pissing off people when you make these attacks on a candidate based on race, based on gender. When you start doing that, then you start having people look at you not through a political lens, but through an everyday lens, like, this guy's a misogynist, this guy's a racist. Okay, now I'm not looking at it just purely positional or issues-orientated situations. I'm looking at it as, I need to get this dude the hell up out of here. And he's personalizing it in that way with people. So when you start attacking her based on gender or based on ethnicity, people are going to start looking at it differently. And then people are going to start making different decisions. And these decisions aren't going to help Donald Trump. I've been trying to tell people, look, in my opinion, Donald Trump needs to stick to policy, stick to winning issues. First of all, attach her to the Biden administration, because the media is trying to make her own entity. She's being rebranded as this champion of the downtrodden, this champion of this race warrior, which she's not. But the Republicans, they can't help themselves. They do this every 4 years. They talk a good game that we're going to be different, but they keep resorting to the same tactics, and then they lose and then wonder why they lost. Attach her to the Biden administration. All the unpopular policies of the Biden administration. Talk about immigration. If you want to resonate with black voters, even though you're not going to win the black vote, what was working was when you were talking about economic issues, when you're talking about social justice issues, when you're talking about immigration. And another thing, stop talking about abortion. I'm not talking about Trump in particular, but the subordinates. Stop talking about that. It's not a winning issue. What you should talk about is some of the contrarian opinions of the Democratic Party. Have them prove to women how certain people in the community could be women. Remember, you can't argue that abortion is for a woman and a woman's only right to choose, and it should only be a woman, but then you don't want to define what a woman is. Another thing, the Democrats have stolen a lot from Republican playbook. They have become the party of patriotism now. That was always a Republican issue back in the day, a Republican winning position, I should say. Going back to Richard Nixon, and especially Ronald Reagan, Morning in America, City on a Shining Hill. That was Reagan's thing. That was Bush's thing. That was, even in the 1990s, it worked to a certain extent. Bush wrapped himself up after 9/11 in patriotism. They've stolen that from Republicans. They're the patriots now. They're the real Americans. Another thing that Republicans have done that screws them up, in my opinion, they have become a party that has rejected its past. You don't see any prior Republican presidents or high ranking Republican officials at the convention. It's become a party of personality. It's a personality cult. The Democrats, you saw them embracing their past. I'm not saying you got to agree with it, but you saw Bill Clinton there. You see Jimmy Carter, even though he's invalid at age 99, speaking about how he's fighting for and willing himself to live to be 100 and beyond that, just to vote against Donald Trump. You've seen, Barack Obama and Michelle Obama give moonshot, knock it out the park speeches. You've seen Jesse Jackson there. You've seen Al Sharpton there. They're embracing their past and they're showing off prior heroes of the past of the Democratic Party. They're embracing their past and they're talking about the future. Right now, the Republicans have a losing strategy. And I don't care if you're a Trump supporter. This ain't meant to be a cheerleading video. This is stark reality. That dude, if he wants to win, he got to show he wants it. Get your ass off the goddamn golf course in Mar-a-Lago. You look, if Biden was old and feeble and all of that stuff, right? Fine. But you're starting to, now you're the old candidate, okay? You don't have Biden meandering around to make you look young by comparison. They're making you look old. You don't want it. It's like, sometimes I wonder if Trump really wants it. He doesn't really want it anymore. It's like he's campaigning, but it's tepid. I don't know. It's hard for me to gauge with him with that, man. But he got to get out there and really hammer home what he wants to accomplish. And he is also, another thing, he's letting the media and the Democrats attach him to unpopular positions. They've attached him lock and hip to Project 225. Define what you're for. Start being presidential again and stop making yourself out to be a victim. Stop crying about every little attack. It's beta male-ish, man. I'm sorry. Donald Trump had always and always was supposedly a beacon of machoism, alpha male. He's coming across as a crybaby beta male that's whining about every goddamn thing now. And it's turning off people. And, you're seeing the worst of Donald Trump since these attacks, since he's been in a real campaign. Stop crying, stop complaining, go out there and fight for what you want. If you're Donald Trump, and sit down with J.D. Vance and tell him to stop goddamn talking about women and reproductive rights and women and kids. Just, you come across as a weirdo, bro. But anyway, that's all I got to say on that. Well, just my opinion. Tell me what you guys think.